So what's the real value of software testing? We often think of it as a purely technical thing, right? It's all about finding bugs and running scripts. But what if its true value isn't really about the code at all, but about people? Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and explore the huge human impact of testing, and, maybe more importantly, how you can talk about that value in a way that actually gets people to listen.
All right, to get started, let's talk about a classic term you've probably heard, the smoke test. This phrase is just so wonderfully intuitive, and it actually comes from old-school hardware engineering. I mean, it's about as direct as it gets, right? You plug something in, you flip the switch, and if you see smoke, well, I guess your testing is done for the day, just not in the way you were hoping.
And this whole idea led to one of my all-time favorite engineering jokes, this concept of magic smoke. The joke goes that every electronic thing works because it's filled with this magic smoke, and your job is to not let it out. Because the moment you do, poof, it stops working. It's just a funny, really simple way to think about a truly catastrophic failure.
But that brings us to a much, much more serious question. Because in the world of software, the smoke isn't always something you can see. It's hidden. So what happens when we miss it? What are the real consequences when our tests fail to spot the disaster that's just around the corner? And that brings us to a really sobering real-world example, the Great Post Office scandal over in the UK. This wasn't just some technical glitch or a few annoying bugs in the software. No, this was a complete, catastrophic failure of testing that had absolutely devastating consequences for real people.
Let's be crystal clear about what was at stake here. Because of deep flaws in the Horizon IT system, hundreds of innocent post office operators were wrongly accused of stealing money. People were sent to jail. Families had their life savings wiped out. Lives were absolutely destroyed. This wasn't just some IT project that went wrong. This was a human tragedy, and it was rooted in a fundamental breakdown of testing and accountability.
So how on earth does something like that even happen? Well, a lot of the time, it starts with a huge misunderstanding of what testing actually is. And if we want to prevent disasters like that from happening again, we first have to tackle the common myths that hold the entire field back.
And look at this. This screen is just packed with what I'd call truly toxic thoughts about testing. You've got ideas like bug-free software is possible, or we've tested everything. These aren't just misconceptions. They're dangerous. They make testing seem like this simple mechanical checklist, and they completely hide its true nature as this complex, creative, and deeply human skill.
And that brings us to a really crucial difference. See, on one side, you have amateur testing. It's kind of based on gut feelings, it's random, and honestly, it's not very likely to find those really nasty hidden problems. But on the other side, you've got professional testing. This is a high-skilled, strategic game. It's designed to hunt down those rare, subtle issues where luck has almost nothing to do with it. So you have to ask yourself, when your business's reputation is on the line, do you really want to be relying on luck?
And this slide has some of my favorite analogies for this. A recipe is not the same as cooking a meal, right? And a sheet of music isn't a musical performance. Well, in the exact same way, a test case is not testing. Following a recipe, that's checking. You're just confirming what you already expect. But testing is the performance itself. It's that human act of exploration, of discovery, of learning something new.
Okay, so how do we get everyone else to understand this? Well, let's talk about a tester named Alice. Now, Alice was a total rock star at doing the work of testing. But she learned a tough lesson. Doing great work is only half the battle. You also have to be brilliant at selling the value of that work.
So in her first big presentation to the higher-ups, Alice did what a lot of technical experts do. She jumped right into the weeds, talking about specific test types, automation frameworks, all the technical stuff. And it completely bombed. Why? Because she was talking about the how, the technical process, not the why, not the actual business value her work was providing.
So learning from that failure, Alice and her team went back to the drawing board and came up with a new strategy. They created these 8 principles as a way to completely change the conversation. The whole goal was to shift how the company saw testing, to move it from being seen as just a cost center, an expense you have to pay for, into a value center that actively protects and grows the business.
Let's just zoom in on one of these for a second. The principle of targeting. This is not about just shouting your message into the void and hoping someone hears it. No, this is about smart, strategic communication. As you can see here, it's about figuring out who your audience is, understanding what they actually care about, and then crafting the perfect message just for them. It's the difference between just dumping a bunch of data on someone and having a really persuasive conversation.
And really, at the heart of this entire approach is something called the principle of connectivity. And this quote just says it all. Make your story their story. You have to stop talking about testing like it exists in a bubble. If you want a manager to care, you have to connect what you do directly to their goals. Things like reducing financial risk, protecting the company's brand, making customers happier. You have to make your story their story.
And when you start doing that, something amazing happens. The whole idea of what a tester is completely changes. You're no longer just the person at the very end of the line whose job it is to find bugs. You become a strategic partner. You become a trusted advisor who helps the entire business make smarter, safer, and much more informed decisions.
And that's why you have to be proactive about communicating this value. I love this quote. Evangelism is not an option, but a necessity. Think about it. If testers don't define their own value, somebody else will, and they're probably going to get it wrong. Being that evangelist, that's how you earn your seat at the decision-making table.
So, I'll leave you with this one question to really think about. In your organization, in your world, how is testing perceived? Is it just a line item on a budget sheet, a cost that needs to be minimized? Or is it seen for what it really can be? A center of incredible value that is actively protecting the business and its customers from disaster? The answer to that question, well, it could change everything. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.